Hi, I'm Brian Carrier from Basis Technology, and this video is part 2 in a 25-minute series about cyber triage. If you're looking for a shorter video on cyber triage, refer to our website. There are 3 steps to using cyber triage. Step 1 is when cyber triage collects data from a live system or disk image. Step 2 is when cyber triage analyzes the collected data to help you find evidence. Step 3 is when a final report is generated with the analysis findings. This video covers step 1, data collection. The next video in the series covers data analysis and reporting. We assume that you have already installed and configured cyber triage. If you haven't, then refer to the previous video or the user's manual for steps on doing that. When you open cyber triage, you'll be presented with this opening screen. This is where you can create and open sessions. Let's make a session. Session is the term that we use for a collection. You can make a session based on data from a live running system or from a disk image. The first field here allows you to group collections together into an incident. This is useful for consultants and law enforcement when they're analyzing a set of systems that are related and you want to correlate amongst them. In this example, we won't use this field and we won't group the collection with other systems. The next field specifies how data is imported into cyber triage from the target system. It shows 4 options. All of them collect the same data. The difference is how the collection tool gets onto the target system and how data is sent from the target system back to cyber triage. As a reminder, cyber triage is an agentless system and does not require that agents be running on all the target systems. The first one, live collection automatic, means that cyber triage is going to copy the collection tool over the network to the target system. The collection tool is going to run and send data back over the network into cyber triage. With this approach, you do not have to interact with the system at all. It's all done over the network automatically. This requires PSExec to be installed and configured as outlined in the installation video. The second mode, live collection manual, is similar to the first one, except for it's up to you to get the collection tool onto that target system. You can do this with a USB drive or a file share. And it's up to you to run the tool as an administrator user, but then the results will be sent over the network back to cyber triage. This is most useful if you're in a situation where you can't remotely install the collection tool because file sharing is enabled or because you don't have the right credentials because you're a consultant or law enforcement. The third option here, live collection file, is similar to the last one in that it's up to you to get that collection tool onto the system using a USB drive, for example. But in this case, the results are going to be saved back to that USB drive and not go over the network. With this approach, network connectivity is not required. So this is most useful in situations where the computer has been unplugged from the network, for situations where there is no connectivity between the target system and cyber triage, or for situations where a consultant or law enforcement is not putting their computer on the customer's network and they simply want to copy data from those target systems and onto their computers. The fourth option here is a disk image. We can take in a raw or an E01 disk image if you have that and analyze that as well. With all these approaches, we're collecting the same amount of data. We're collecting volatile data from the system. We're doing a targeted file collection, going to the registry and the event logs, identifying programs that are being run by the users, as well as startup items and the auto runs places. And then our last phase is going through the system, scanning for suspicious files that are on the system. With all 4 approaches, it's the same amount of data that gets sent back. It's just a matter of how the collection tool gets on there and how data gets sent back. Let's briefly look at what happens when you make a session using each of these. For the sake of keeping this simple, I'm going to actually use my local system here, which is also the analysis system, to do the collection. We do not recommend doing this because it has a serious impact on performance, and you don't need to install the cyber triage interface on systems that you're collecting from. But it just makes it a bit easier here for the video to be using the same screen for both. So if we're to choose live collection automatic, now this is the approach where the collection tool is sent over the network and data is sent back over the network. If you choose that, you have to put a host name in. So we'll choose localhost to keep this simple, and we'll say add session. and it's going to prompt me for a username, a domain, and a password. This needs to be an administrator account. And once I enter these 3 values in, it'll then push the collection tool to that host using these credentials, and data will get sent back automatically. The second option is live collection manual. In this approach, it's up to you to get the collection tool on that target system, either by emailing it to a local administrator or by putting it on a USB drive and running it. And data will then be sent back over the network back into Cyber Triage. To do this approach and the next, you'll have to extract the collection tool out of Cyber Triage. You can do that down here at the bottom. There's a feature here. You can type in a folder or a drive to extract the collection tool to, press extract, and it will save it to that folder. You can then copy that to wherever you need to, whether it be a USB drive or to email it to a local administrator. So to create one of these sessions, choose Live Collection Manual, enter hostname. Again, I will use localhost here just for a simple example, but in many cases this would be a remote host on the system. Choose Add, and it will now give you the command to run, which is Cyber Triage CLI, and you specify -- server and the server name of the system running Cyber Triage. So on that target system, you'll get an administrator command prompt, and you type in the command given, which is Cyber Triage. And that will then start the agent and change the interface. The third option, Live Collection File, is where it's up to you to get that collection tool onto that target system by emailing or USB drive, but then the data is saved back to where the tool was run from. We usually recommend you do this with the USB drive approach so that the results are saved back to that USB drive. This is most common, again, when the computer's unplugged from the network, or when you're more in a law enforcement consultant situation where you aren't on the network with them, or if it's at a remote office and data can't be sent back to the central security team easily. This method has 2 steps. First, we have to run the collection tool and save the data. So you would again use the extract collection tool to drive method if you don't have the collection tool already saved, and you run it on that target system. Again, for the sake of a demo, I'm going to run it on my computer, but normally this would be run on the separate computer, and you would plug the USB drive in. You may get a Explorer manager as follows, and you right click on the file and you say run as administrator, and it will then save the results to that folder. After the collection has finished, you now need to bring that data from the USB drive into the analysis system. So you'd unplug the USB drive from that target system, plug it in your analysis system, and then browse to that folder. So we choose Live Collection File, and then browse to that folder. In this case, it's in the Cyber Triage with a date stamped folder, and it's a ctt.out.json file. And we then give it the host name and choose Add. Finally, for a disk image, you choose Disk Image, and you browse to the E01 or the raw image, give it the host name, and choose Add. When you create any session, you have these 2 options down here, which is malware analysis. With Cyber Triage, you get a subscription to OpsWatt, which allows you to do malware scanning of the executables using 40+ malware scanning engines. This first checkbox here enables you to upload MD5 hashes to the system to know if they already know about it. And the second checkbox here enables Cyber Triage to upload file content for situations where the hashes are not known on that target system and a full analysis needs to be done. Some places have different threshold for privacy settings for this, and we allow you to choose one or the other if you don't want to upload file content for scanning. The third option down here enables or configures whether or not that full scan of the system is done, because that can be the most time intensive. So if you're in a very tight time situation, you can disable this and it will do a faster scan of the system. And that's it. After choosing one of the 4 methods for getting data into the system and creating a session and successfully configuring it, you'll see a window as follows, where the analysis of that data begins. We'll cover the analysis of the data in the next video.